Hello and welcome one and all to the magnificent British countryside on this relatively sunny afternoon as Phoenix World Championship returns to your screens from the Brands Hatch Motor Circuit as I'm trying to pull up the info. This is fine, there we go. Kent County is the place of our proceedings for today, and the mean German machines already started their takeoff of British soil. Quite localized for now at this circuit. I hope none of them will, well, exit it throughout today's race. As the qualifying is underway, many series saw races being hosted here, including Formula 1, WTCC, DTM, and European Rallycross, among others, dating all the way back to 1920. So lots of racing here, and probably most of it was more exciting than what you're gonna see today. But either way. The nearly 4-kilometer long circuit challenges drivers with 9 turns and lots of elevation changes. It's the competitive nature of a beast that will be racing today, chasing the DTM lap record of 1 minute 17.948 seconds, set by Gary Paffett in his Mercedes. Actually, the same Mercedes that is currently being driven on screen by McLaren team right here, set in 1:15.754. So never mind that record, he's already faster. Oh, this is great. Yeah. As per usual, all throughout weekend, the action will be loosely described and mostly missed or ignored by yours truly, Ilya Babansky, as we will be heading towards the race 1 soon enough. Matthew Ruda is not here at this point. Maybe he'll join later. We will see. So far we're tracking Tim, who's, well, half a second clear, but behind him we have a very close battle between Gunses and Maestro. 600ths of a second between the two. Behind them, Photon Burst, Mr. Grinder, Viperian, and Neon Tiger. I'm gonna give the engine of Tim's car a few brief seconds of solo commentary time, as we have 3 minutes to go in this qualifying, and we'll be back in about a lap. The lap has been abandoned by McLaren team. He's going to be heading for yet another one of his quick ones. Still in the lead. Meanwhile, the Latvian Gunses is on his fastest lap. I believe, or at least the live timing is making me think so, which is probably going to be incredibly inaccurate, but we're going to just roll with it and pretend nothing really matters. Anyone can see, nothing really matters. Right. This is gonna be a long weekend. Guns is rounding out the end of the second sector, the beginning of the third sector. The right-hander followed by another right-hander. This one is blind corner at the start of the third sector. You have to cut it very sharply. And then the downhill left-hander with a lot of camber, so you can try to throw the car into the turn, but beware of the grass on the outside on the final run to the final corner. The right-hander leading onto the start-finish straight, which is not really a straight, more of a bend, as he crosses the line and provides us no useful time. 30 seconds left on the clock. Viperian is the first person in the pits. That will be it for the Kiwi so far in the 6th place, 3.7 seconds back from McLaren team. Neon Tiger still 2 tenths behind him, so that'll be the battle for 6th place. I imagine we're looking at Mr. Grinder crossing the line, McLaren team crossing the line, and Photon crossing the line, 2 tenths behind McLaren team. The Mercedes driver improves significantly in front of the both Gunster's Draft Malibu helmet drivers, and currently Timberwolves are occupying 1 and 2 complete first row lockout. McLaren team is in the pits. His race is, his qualifying is done. Gunster's on the very limit, right next to the gravel. He'll have a chance to beat the time. He is gonna be the next car to cross the start-finish line, and he is not gonna do it. He's way too far back, so he resets to pit lane. The next car that's gonna be there is gonna be Neon Tiger. We are spectating the American in number 12 take this entry. Apex Predator team member that is going under the bridge for the last turn, taking it kind of narrow, trying to maximize the exit radius, and he crosses the line, and he is still in 7th place. He improves 1:19.5, but that is not good enough. Next one, Photon Burst, 0.218 on the last lap. Is he able? No, he goes straight to the pit lane, so he will not improve and stay in the 2nd place. But will he stay there for long as Maestro rounds out the final turn for the final time in this qualifying speed trap, 253.3 kilometers an hour, and it's not good enough. 1:16.2. He improves but stays in 3rd place, and that is how grid shakes up. McLaren team on pole, Photon Burst alongside him. The 2nd row occupied by Gunster Draft Malibu helmet drivers Maestro and Gunsis. Mr. Grinder in 5th, Viperion in 6th, and Neon Tiger in 7th position, as we have a race countdown, just a little bit to go, as we have I need to figure out how to deal with the broadcast. That might not work. Either case, that is our starting grid right here. Just 2 minutes to go for the first race. We're gonna have the same old 30 minutes plus 1 lap of racing to go. Plenty of laps on this track, as we probably realized that is a very, very short track in comparison with many others. Doesn't help that the cars are incredibly fast and probably the fastest mode of touring car racing out there. So we will see how everything happens, though we might expect a few lap drivers here and there. Remember that Neon Tiger and Viperion ended up being 3 and a bit seconds behind Tim, with plenty of laps on offer. We might see some lap in action, and we might have some strategic pit strategies, I wanted to say, which would not be the dumbest thing I ever said, which is probably a very bad outlook on me personally as a commentator. But excuse me, as I have to talk a lot today, as Matt is probably enjoying one too many drinks. Speaking of drinks, cheers y'all. As we have just about 30 seconds on the countdown for the first race at Brands Hatch. The first turn is gonna be an absolute doozy. Remember that it's very, very fast downhill. You can easily go too wide in there, so if Photon is not very kind to his teammate, he might try to go around the outside and try to maintain the position. And remember that from the 2nd row, Maestro and Gunse, especially Maestro, can dive down the inside. Lots of things can happen as we have the lights. We're about to go green for round number 11 of Phoenix World Championship. And away we go, the race starts. Very, very slow start as cars are squiggling all over the place. McLaren team in the middle, followed by Photon Burst heading into the first turn. A couple of cars are a little bit wide, but so far so good as we approach in turn 2. McLaren team leading the race. Behind him, Photon Burst and Maestro. Maestro basically bombs him out of the way, as they head to turn 3, single file right now, as I need to remember to do that. Apologies for a little bit of... There we go. McLaren Tim is just flying away as Maestro reclaims second position in front of Photon Burst. Behind him, Gunther and Mr. Grinder stays with him. The return of the German to the series. It was quite a serious competition before. He had to miss a few races. He is going for it on the inside of Gunther's. Still side by side as they head in the second right-hander of 3. Grinder in a preferable position, but he can't push too wide, and that's what Gunther utilizes to get the position back. Viperian is now behind these two as they had to slow down for the right-handers. The third right-hander, they're going into the left-hand turn, downhill, crested turn. Grinder is not really on top of the game here as he lets Gunther a little bit further in front as they complete the first lap. McLaren Tim already half a second in front of Maestro, who is almost a second clear of Photon Burst, so that's a very good lap from both of them. The 1-2 in the qualifying did not work out extremely well for the Timberwolves Racing, but they're still the best team out there in first and third out of 7 participating today. 2 minutes left, 28 plus 1 lap to go, as we have Mr. Grinder still trying to find the momentum to get past. Neon Tiger tries to sweep around the outside, crosses over on the inside on Viperian, and executes almost the perfect pass, if I can say so myself. Brilliant over-under. And now with a good enough gap to avoid lots of draft from the Kiwi, securing that 6th place. In the meanwhile, we have the race still going for 4th place between Mr. Grinder and Gunther. We're going on board with the German Apex gear today in full force with Neon and Mr. Grinder as number 20. Oh, Gunther goes off track. Gunther misses the turn and into the gravel trap he goes. So from a onboard, he tries to avoid many cars and he is facing the wall. This is a huge problem for the Latvian, and he is dead last right now with extremely hot tires. He is doing donuts out here. He lost so much time. He is now almost a sector behind everybody, and he's basically a pit stop behind, and he will need some magic to get back. He's instantly going into the pits as his rubber is pretty much ruined at this point. We can see the rest of the pack on the other side of a track as he pits. That will be an interesting shakeup for the second place. Sharky is not here. Sharky is not taking place in today's proceedings. But at the same time, Maestro is here and Photon Burst is here. They're both chasing Gunther's, and that incredibly unfortunate result and him being out of top 3 in the qualifying might be a serious problem for the Latvian championship-wise, if I may say, championship implications right here as he rejoins. Looking like he's 35 seconds back from P6, though he has completed his pit stop. Meanwhile, we have the battle for P2, or maybe even P1 continuing, as surprisingly enough, McLaren Tim is not really gaining that much time. He is leading, he is almost a second in front, but Maestro and Photon still hanging around, and currently Photon sets the fastest lap for himself and fastest lap of the race at 1:16.817. So this is all to play for, especially with Gunther so far gone. Meanwhile, in the back, Grinder is slowly losing pace. He's not up to task right now. And behind him we have Neon and Viperian 1 second behind each other. So still really close for 5th and 6th. And both of them now have to think about Gunther's. They have a solid gap, but they still have to pit. So they might want to take it easy, just secure the position from a Latvian, and then figure out their own differences closer to the finish line. Maestro still hanging on to Tim, probably in the draft, definitely in DRS range. So the Russian is hunting down the American, and still a second between first and second and third. Very close racing between those three, and still a second between Neon Tiger and Viperian in the process. We go on board with Gunther's draft Malibu helmet entry number 037. DRS wide open all the way to the start finish line, which is right here. So that's a long straight 1:16.745 as Maestro sets the newest fastest lap He is on fire. 1:16.8 is the answer from Tim. He loses another 10, but he is still in the lead as Maestro goes a little bit wide. Different lines from two different drivers, but it looks like pace-wise it might as well be equally now until Maestro just clips the grass, exploring every single inch of the track available and sometimes maybe not even available to the drivers to gain that competitive edge. Maestro all over the DRS button that if you see on the dash in the bottom left, the green rectangle that says DRS, when it's green that means DRS is open and the driver is using one out of his 3 uses per lap and 1 out of 12 allowed laps of DRS, which is less than usual here just because laps are short and there are a lot of them. Obviously not like Norris Ring, which was a very short circuit, but still you gotta think about when to use DRS, when to hang back just with the draft and when to use it tactically. So far Maestro just wants to get closer and closer to Tim, and that is a successful plan, I believe, as Tim is gonna set 1:16.9, 1:16.7 from Maestro, 1:17.2 from Photon. Photon not able to hold on that good, but still gaining some time to Mr. Grinder. Meanwhile, behind them, still a race going on between Viperion and Neon Tiger, as we see now on the screen. We have just a second between those two, which means Viperion still has the advantage of DRS availability for 12 laps at best. As we go back, Maestro and Tim still close to each other. Photon 2.5 back, which means he's still in DRS range. Unlike Formula 1, the DRS range in DTM and PWC is gonna be 3 seconds. So, McLaren Tim does not have DRS, Maestro has DRS, and Photon has some so far, though he's 6/10 from being excluded from his circle, and well, he's basically 7/10 from getting Grinder back in his DRS zone. So that is a very important consideration for Photon right here. As Maestro lost a couple of tenths here, we're still spectating that battle, which is still less than a second, with a good lap from McLaren Team or suboptimal lap from Maestro, one or the other. 16.7 and 17.1. Fastest lap of the race by McLaren Team, so I guess the answer is both, as Tim finally gets some afterburners on that Mercedes C63 AMG DTM entry of his, and gets a little bit of a gap going. 1:18.9 for Neon, 1:19.3 for Viperion. The battle over there is not being quite as tight. Oh, I believe something happened over there. Viperion is in front, Neon is behind, and I can only assume with the 4-second gap something happened to Neon in turn 1, probably clipped gravel just a little bit because I didn't see a big off track. But the American, although he is being faster of the two, he lost a place and now he has to claw back those 3 seconds. So the chase begins. He needs to get this pass done all over again. Meanwhile, in the 7th place we see Gunsis, who is lapping 1:17. He is slower than the top 3, but he is faster than 4th, 5th and 6th, which is very important in the pit cycle, as Gunsis is done with his pit stops and everybody else is yet to stop. Remember that, as we are almost 10 minutes into the race, still almost gridlocked, all the top 3 just within a couple seconds of each other. Maestro is not letting Tim get away. This is probably the hardest he ever had to battle after the first round at Hockenheim. Speaking of McLaren Tim, he is not given those easy 40 points right here by Gunsis Draft Malibu helmet driver. And gotta save, even if it's a small grid, it's some entertaining chasing going on between the two drivers. Let's go once again on board with the 037, still wide open with DRS and almost matching his time delta right now, chasing the American. And right now, I believe we can easily go for a good old tuned up lap with just the glorious DTM engine. And we are right back with your least favorite play-by-play announcer that is slowly but surely losing his voice as the race continues. Maestro still with the same gap to McLaren team. Nothing separates these two right now, as the very, very big Vice City themed car is still chasing the Timberwolves racing entry. Behind them, Mr. Grinder is a little bit in no man's land right now, being 10 seconds between the car, well, 10 seconds from one car and 10 seconds to another car. Definitely not much to gain for the German, but he is in a decent position right now for himself. As he is securing some good points for P4 after his return. Photon Burst is currently more than 3 seconds back of Maestro. He lost a huge heap of time out of turn 3. I believe he might have clipped the grass on the exit, which slows it down immensely. So he is now out of DRS range. He doesn't have many DRS laps remaining. We're gonna see what Maestro does with his, because, well, I believe not much DRS left for him either. So that is going to be a very, very interesting debate. Meanwhile, Gunses slowly but surely creeping up on Viperion and Neon Tiger. Still 4 seconds between them, so Neon is not necessarily catching up. So that's what we have right now. We have a huge, still ongoing battle as McLaren team pulls into the pit lane. Maestro takes the lead of the race as we are on board with the American for this pit stop. Into the pit lane, and he overshoots it. He overshoots his pit box. He had to reverse. That might cost him some time as he gets the new rubber on, and out of a pit lane he goes. He might have lost 1 or 2 seconds. That might be enough to swap the position. That will be interesting to see his hot lap right here. Grider goes by, the rest are not close enough. So McLaren team on cold rubber. He will have to get some lap of the gods or two to make sure Maestro stays behind. Meanwhile, we go on board with Maestro. If I'm him, I'm pitting right now. I'm pitting to cover him off while his rubber is cold. Or maybe at most 1 extra lap, as he is slow on his delta. He needs to pitch relatively soon if he wants in that battle, because McLaren team opened up a door for him. Maestro doesn't know about this door just yet, but the door is wide open, and he needs to be able to capitalize on that. Halfway through the race we are. As I turn my inner Yoda on, does Maestro go onto the pit lane right now? Yes, he does! And this is interesting. There's the pit entry. Maestro versus Tim. Maestro very hot into the pit lane. A little bit of a touch of the wall, but he's on the pit lane, and we'll see where he exits. Onto the pit lane he goes. We're focusing on McLaren Tim, who's now rounding out the final turn. Right here under the bridge. And out of a final turn, we'll see where Maestro is. Remember, McLaren Tim headed up on cold tires. There is the big car. It's far ahead, but the tires are cold. He's gonna lose a second or two, so McLaren Tim needs the fastest lap he can muster to get close to Maestro, as the Russian will be struggling for grip for a little bit, but that a little bit is gonna be just about a lap and not more. And the gap is there. The gap is 2 seconds in favor of the Russian. That is going to be very, very close and very, very interesting. It all depends on how fast Maestro will be able to heat up his tires. My god, this is going to be some exciting racing right here. And 2 small mistakes Maestro is not faultless to might help Photon of all people to get back closer to the battle. Still battling for a net lead of a race. McLaren Tim all over Maestro. He is going for a move, looking down the inside. No, he pulls out at the last possible moment. But Maestro's tires are warming up, so Tim does not have a big margin for this overtake opportunity. While it's easy, he goes down the inside into turn 1, side by side into turn 1 are 2 leaders, and Maestro just shuts the door violently on Tim. and does it again. Maestro with hard defense. McLaren team has to avoid. But it's all fair and square. Maestro not being the kindest, but he's still in the net lead of the race. Viperian on the pit lane right now, promoting Gunses to P6. We'll see where the Latvian exits after his shenanigans. He would be hoping for P4, I believe, but Grinder might disagree with that, depending on how fast he was going. Still battling for the lead, a little bit of a gap that doesn't really mean anything, like 2, maybe 3 tenths between the two. Still locked in the battle. Now Maestro is in the lead, now Mr. Grinder is on the pit lane, he gets passed by these two. And let's see where Gunses is. Gunses is still just after his sector 3. We'll see how far behind he will be when Grinder exits the pits, and see if Gunses has, well, any chance in hell to catch up. But Grinder already exiting the pit lane, and Gunses not even in the final turn just yet. Neon Tiger on the pit lane, that's gonna be easy pickings for the Latvian, but he'll find himself in 5th place, and I'm not sure he'll find any more positions here. He's very, very far back. Meanwhile, the battle continues for the net lead, currently for the 2nd place with 12 minutes plus 1 lap to go. Maestro versus McLaren team, with Photon Burst still in the lead of this race, but he still is yet to pit. We're on board this time with number 71, Timberwolves Racing, American driver of McLaren team, who is now the chasing car. It's a very unusual position for Tim. Apart from race 1 against Sharky, he did not have to attack. Now he has to, and we will see how good is his attacking skill. He's been looking into the final turn quite a few times. If I were to guess, if there is one move to be done, it's either turn 1 or the final turn. I don't exactly remember. There's a touch! There is a touch, but Tim just about saves it, but Maestro is long gone. Maestro is long gone, and Tim lost about 5, maybe 6 seconds doing that. So, I believe that might be the conclusion of our battle for the win. That might be the start of our battle for P2, as Tim loses a lot of time, and that might be opening a gap for Photon to utilize. Grinder too far back with 13-second gap, but Photon, if pits now, that might be a battle between teammates over here. I'm sure McLaren team has having a few choice words for Maestro. I'm not sure who was born to blame there. It looked like either racing incident of both going for the same spot, or Tim just washing a little bit too wide on my end, but I am definitely not gonna call it either way. Photon meanwhile on the pit lane, we're gonna be watching from on board of number 28 of Timberwolves Racing. The Dutchman parks his car. He will let Maestro through, but the question is, where is McLaren Tim? There goes Photon. Very loose, there goes Maestro. And McLaren Tim is in his rearview mirror, and Photon is ahead of him, but on very, very cold and slow tire. So if Tim wants past, he needs to do it very fast. In about this lap, Tim is all over the rear of his teammate, but I don't think Photon would like these points go. Oh, never mind. They just swap. They swap positions. There's some team tactics happening in Timberwolves Racing. No defense from Photon Burst. I was about to say that I would expect Photon to fight for that position, as he needs points to battle with Gunses and Maestro. But apparently he is settled for third over here, as he lets Tim by and settles in behind him, trying to get some DRS laps as much as he can from him. Meanwhile, Gunses is slowly closing the gap on Mr. Grinder, 6 seconds between them. And I'm looking at the gap between Neon Tiger and Viperian. Viperian lost a lot of time somewhere, as he posts a 120. I kind of missed that as I was looking at the whole shenanigans up front, but Neon got back to 6th position with the Kiwi going back down to 7th. with a considerable gap, so if American doesn't make a mistake, that's gonna be it for them. McLaren Tim posts 1:17.6, which is definitely not a fast time. Of course, he's been held up a little bit, but still. Finds himself in second place, 5 seconds behind Maestro, 8.5 minutes plus 1 lap to go. Still plenty of time, but McLaren Tim needs to just go like hell if he wants that win. It might be just too far away, as Maestro is currently running away with the win. I believe that'll be in 11 races. This is the 11th race of the season. In 11 races, that'll be our third winner if Maestro brings it home. So far, this driver, McLaren Tim, right here, won every race but one that was won by number 8 entry of Team Hufflepuff, Sharky, who's not present here today. And after that, Tim claimed every single race that was in front of him. So definitely interesting to see what happens here and what happens in race 2, as I believe Maestro will be very happy with this result and maybe gaining some good momentum from this to fight in the second race of the weekend. It's definitely going to be very, very interesting what happens. And this race is still not over, as Photon posts 16.7 with T posting 17.4. Photon is all over McLaren Tim right here, and he might be regretting letting his teammate pass right now, as he might be the faster driver of the two, and we have 7 minutes plus 1 lap to figure it out in this race. Photon wants points, McLaren Tim has plenty, so we might see a swap around between those two drivers, if there are team tactics, or we might just see Photon going for an old-fashioned overtake on his teammate. He needs that position. You might not think he does, but looking at the overall table, he definitely does, as we will show you the position after 10 races after the conclusion of this one, so you can do some equations and some simple maths here on your own and trying to figure out who ends up where. But for now, we're still locked into the battle for P2 with Maestro pulling further and further away. 17.4, he's not posting the fastest lap of all times, but he has the gap. He doesn't need to push. Another 4/10s by Photon gained over McLaren Tim. He is utilizing this new rubber to his absolute maximum potential. Still 5 seconds in the battle for fourth between Mr. Grinder and Gunses. This is far away. He needs to gain second lap, and it's not happening. So looks like this is the battle we're gonna be spectating. Battle between teammates. McLaren Tim versus Photon Burst. We go on board with Photon. Let's keep an eye on that DRS marker. See if he has any laps available and if he is using it. No green. There it is. After the crash, he's played it a little bit safe. DRS is open. That means he will have it at least for the entirety of this lap. We're not sure how much left he has, but he still has some to try and battle his teammate. Less than a second between those two. And this might be going till the very end. Good exit of a left-hander by Photon. DRS wide open heading into the final turn. And still at probably half a second, maybe even less between those two. Photon is all over the back of his teammate. Team is weaving around trying to just dissuade from even trying to attempt an overtake. Photon is staying right back. The Dutchman does not agree with his current position. He wants through and he tries to get through. And McLaren Team defending with all his might right here, trying to get on the loud pedal as fast as possible, clipping the grass out of turn 2 as well. So the battle continues almost at the end of the race here, a little bit wide from Photon on the exit, which gives a little bit of breathing room for Tim. Just half a second, that might be enough. No DRS this lap for Photon. We don't know if he's not using it and waiting for the later laps to maybe use it at the end, or if he's out. He's been in the DRS range for a big chunk of this race at the start, so we don't know how many laps he used, but we know he's close. He's close. half a second between him and Tim, but 4 seconds to Maestro. Maestro has been very cautious and rather slow. He doesn't need to push very hard. He does 17.5 as Tim finally gets 17 flat out of himself, with Photon losing a little bit of time. Photon's fastest lap is 16.6. If he does those times, he's still in it to win it, as Tim locks up a little bit. His tires cannot be liking that. Looking at 3:19 left, that means probably 3 more laps of this race to go, maybe 4 depending on when Maestro crosses the start-finish line for that 1 extra lap. Oh, a little bit sideways for Photon. He gained time on himself. He gained time on his previous lap by sliding, which is weird, but Photon does that. So I'm not even sure how he operates that car. 8 tenths between him and Tim though. DRS is not open. Tim is getting some good laps done, trying to get away from his teammate. It is definitely close between those two. One mistake can still decide many things. Mostly the positions on the podium for Timberwolves racing cars, who are now 2nd and 3rd, with Gunther Schaaf, Malibu Helmet, Maestro in 1st place. Two minutes to go and still under a second between the two teammates. 3.6 to Maestro. The gap is slowly disappearing. Maestro has been very conservative, but he still has a few laps to go. If he is a bit too slow, we know Tim is pushing for all his might. 1 and a bit seconds were gained by Gunther's on Grinder in that exchange in the previous lap. 3 seconds between them, but still the time is expiring a little bit too fast. Viperian meanwhile went a lap down. Next car a lap down would be Neon Tiger. He's about 8 seconds in front of the leader right now. We can see right here there is Viperian that is between the leader and McLaren Tim and Photon Burst. There is that black Kiwi car, and let's see if he gives way very nice and cautiously, or is he gonna be a part of that battle for the 2nd place. A little bit of a lockup for McLaren Tim again. He is under pressure, still a second and a minute plus 1 lap to go. Master crossed the line now, which means we got 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go in this race and 2 laps for Photon Burst to get something out of this battle. Tim goes for a move. He has to move Viperian out of the way. That gives a little bit of an advantage to Photon. He gained probably a tenth or 2 out of this, but not too much, as Viperian smartly just gets out of the way as soon as he can. Neon Tiger will be the last target, but I'm not sure they'll reach him. There's about half a back straight right now between him and the leader, plus some to the 2nd and 3rd position. 4th and 5th right now separated by 2.5 seconds, but again, might be a bit too late for Gunther. Still less than a second between the two. Maestro maintaining his lead at 3.6 seconds this entire lap, so he got a little bit of pace out of it. The timer is officially expired. Maestro is yet to cross the start-finish line. That means we will have a white flag waving around for Maestro right about now. White flag is in the air. 1 more lap to go. 1 more lap for Photon Burst to get the 2nd position out of his teammate. He will be shouting in his helmet right now, and maybe even shouting at his teammate. If he knows the championship situation right now, he needs those points. Those are 4 points that might end up being crucial. I don't think McLaren team cares much. I'm not sure my Photon Burst thinks about it either, but he better be. 3.3 to the leader. That's way too far back. 1.3 seconds between Grinder and Gunther's, but we are spectating this battle. We'll switch to them shortly. 1 second between those two. We will spectate that race too. Half a lap to go for everyone. We have 20 seconds between this battle and the battle back. 1 second between 4th and 5th. 6 tenths between 2nd and 3rd. Final attempts for Photon against McLaren team. We see Maestro in the lead ahead, just 3 seconds. Very close racing. Photon burst. If he wants to win, he needs to send it now. As Maestro in front of him rounds out the final corner for the final time. So do those two. Maestro Ponchik wins the first race at Brands Hatch, and Photon burst just a little bit too short. Just a little bit too short, and stays in third place. We have this battle going on right now. Gunses versus Mr. Grinder. Gunses in the last turn. DRS wide open. He is trying to cross over. Who's got superior exit? He's trying to get close. DRS wide open. That's gonna be a race to the finish line. And no, Gunses is just a little bit too short. And he stays in 5th place. Wow. For 7 drivers, that's one hell of a race. Maestro Ponchik from Gunses Draft Malibu Helmet wins the race. McLaren team stays in 2nd. Photon burst just behind him in 3rd. Mr. Grinder barely survives in 4th. With Gunses in 5th, Neon Tiger secures 6th position. He is yet to finish a race. I believe he's still on the final lap, as he's not been lapped. And Viperion finishes 1 lap down in 7th. Wow, I lost my voice right here. Ho ho ho! Oh, what a race, lads. What a race, and we have one more to go as Neon Tiger crosses the finish line right about now. Woo! That was interesting. Definitely interesting. We will have the gaps for you a little bit later with the whole results, but stay with us for race number 2 at round 12 in Brands Hatch. Until then, just a little bit of ad space and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Norman Mitchell, standing here in front of PWC Wellness Center in Houston, Texas.
Mid-County area is where we're going. Port Arthur, Nederland, Port Neches.
We're in Canovanas, the shelter here in Puerto Rico.
We're here at Jardín Pushkin in Colonia Roma.
The hallmark of disasters is you have to do what you do, you just have to do more of it faster. 2017 has seen more large-scale emergencies in sequence than ever before in direct relief 70-year history. The people who know the most, have the most at stake, are going to do the best job with the resources they have are the ones who live there.
Just received a large shipment of critical medicine from Direct Relief.
Some gauze, some bandages for people that are managing the response and rescue efforts.
You're standing strong, united with every other organization providing primary care and critical access to those individuals who have been most impacted.
I remember that guy, he's a bit of an idiot. He stopped. Somehow we was like, fuck you, I'm not hurting. I hit the wall. something bad happened to somebody in front of us. Welcome to Daytona. Checker flag. Fantastic job, everyone.
finally, we are back. It's the DTM. We're here in...
This is the fastest form of touring car racing. We've got 3 of the biggest manufacturers in the world.
Safety car deployed. Safety car deployed.
From where we came on the grid, to be in the points was my dream. To be on the podium is amazing.
Does it improve the lives of people? That's the true measure of any technology or any new investment. And you hope to God that basic core human element is never lost, no matter how technologically advanced we get as people. So the human case has always been strong for what direct relief does. People who are poor or stuck in these terrible circumstances need help. That basic idea to listen, not impose, to be respectful and not arrogant is still as valid as it was in 1948. Principles really don't change, and I think direct relief, fortunately, started with good ones of being open-minded, kind of big-hearted with respect to people's needs, and hard-headed when it comes to other people's money. When you look back and think direct relief has played a significant role in many of the signature humanitarian events over the past 70 years, the combination of those characteristics has served the organization well, and they're sort of timeless. You're surrounded by inspiration if you see it. I think anytime, if you've never done something, or you've done something at one scale, it's scary to think how you can do it at 10 times the scale. But at the end of the basic decision was pretty easy. Why would we not do this when the signals were all pointing in the right direction? The dedication of the building is really a rededication to the cause, to the idea, and a commemoration to the people whose generosity made it possible. What it represents is a much greater capability to help more people with tools that we have embedded in it, with the experience of 70 years. To bring those together in this building so we can do more in the same efficient way we've always tried to do it is really exciting. And we are sobered by the challenge, but deeply thankful for the opportunity to keep doing what Direct Relief has been doing for the past 70 years.
Hi, I'm Norman Mitchell, standing here in front of PWC Wellness Center in Houston, Texas.
Mid-County area is where we're going. Port Arthur, Nederland, Port Neches.
We're in Canovanas, the shelter here in Puerto Rico.
We're here at Jardín Pushkin in Colonia Roma.
The hallmark of disasters is you have to do what you do, you just have to do more of it faster. 2017 has seen more large-scale emergencies in sequence than ever before in direct relief 70-year history. The people who know the most, have the most at stake, are going to do the best job with the resources they have are the ones who live there.
Just received a large shipment of critical medicine from Direct Relief.
Some gauze, some bandages for people that are managing the response and rescue efforts.
You're standing strong, united with every other organization providing primary care and critical access to those individuals who have been most impacted.
I remember that guy, he's a bit of an idiot. He stopped. Somehow we was like, fuck you, I'm not turning. I hit the wall, but I hit one of the bumps because I lost. Heavy damage. Don't try to kill yourself. GT3, get a GT3. He's fucking idiot. At least I think something bad happened to somebody in front of us. Welcome to Daytona. Checker flag. Fantastic job, everyone.
Alright, hello and welcome back to Phoenix World Championship. We are halfway through the qualifying for our second race of the weekend and round 12 out of 18 in this championship. So far, team is comfortably in the lead, but obviously we're gonna see a few more efforts from everyone else. As Photon goes back to the pit lane for maybe another lap later. So, let's get ourselves reacquainted with what are we doing and where we are going. We are still in Brands Hatch, the United Kingdom, round 6 out of 9 in this Phoenix World Championship, the last international event of the season. The lap record was very much shattered by the guys in the previous race and still possibly improving. No win today and just under 4 kilometers of a racetrack for 30 minutes plus 1 lap are ahead of the drivers as this qualifying ends. So what do we have right now in terms of the standings? You can see right here, this is after 10 races, so we're not including the previous race that concluded a few minutes ago. This is after TT Essen and 5 rounds of racing. TWC racing comfortably on top and even improving their lead over Gunther Giraffe Malibu Helmet despite the win of Maestro in the previous race. And here you see the Drivers' Championship, which might be shaken up as we go along, as Gunther's lost quite a few points, Photon picked up a few, and Maestro got himself a win. So this is definitely going to change after this weekend, though McLaren team is still going to be comfortably on top, I believe, with 3 more rounds to go, as you see the rest of the standings here. Two and a half minutes left in this qualifying session. Today I will be your solo commentator for the race, as Matthew Ruda is a little bit unavailable this weekend, and hopefully we're gonna see yet another blockbuster like we've seen in the first race. This was definitely incredibly interesting to see, and definitely a unique experience for this league with so many battles right to the very end. And right now I'm looking at Tim being half a second in front of everyone. Maestro claiming second position. Gunther, his teammate, 2/10 back with Mr. Grind. Oh, Gunther goes off track a little bit. Mr. Grinder in 4th and currently on pit lane. Neon Tiger in 5th. Viperian in 6th. And still waiting for Photon to post a valid time. Photon is struggling a little bit, and let's go on track with him. He's right behind Gunther's here on track, and let's see if he's able to post a fast time. Approaching the start finish line. They're gonna have 2 more laps after this one to do something about it. They cross the line. Photon improves, but just to 5th best, 1:17.8, 2 seconds behind his teammate who's in the lead. He needs to improve. He was very fast in the first qualifying, but definitely no pace of that, or I guess nowhere near Neon Tiger off the track and in the pit lane. The qualifying is gonna be over for him. He is 2.5 seconds behind McLaren Tim and currently in P6. Viperian might be beaten that result, but he's 3.1 back, already better than in the first qualifying. He's still on track, so he might improve this position. We have 45 seconds left, so everybody crossing the line right now will still have plenty of time to get back and get themselves some, well, 1 extra lap. Photon burst. Oh, he's sideways and he spun. He needs to really get going to get 1 more lap out of this. He stops and I think he's done. He's done, and McLaren team is done. So, Photon is stuck in 5th place. Maestro 1:16.2. He improves, but still stays in 2nd place. Gunther rounds out the final corner. He will have 1 more opportunity to go. He will cross the finish line with the time of not good enough. 1:16.7, 1:16.5 was his best time, so he's still gonna try once more to improve and get ahead of his teammate. The time has officially expired. We have 4 more cars on track, but Viperian is off track, Maestro is off track, so both of them are done. So we just have Mr. Grinder and Gunsis. All the rest are locked in their places. Mr. Grinder and Gunsis, Mr. Gunsis, I'm not Maestro, what am I talking about? Mr. Grinder and Gunsis are the only two that might move Maestro from the second place on the grid. The fight for the top row is still ongoing. Mr. Grinder will be the first one to cross the start-finish line for the final time in this qualifying session, as he goes through the final turn for one last time. 1:15.803 is the best time, and he posts 1:16.7, which makes him stay in the third place, 2 tenths behind Gunsis. Speaking of Gunsis, he is gonna be rounding out the final turn right about now. He's the final car to cross the line, and is he gonna be anywhere near? He posts 1:16.4. He improves, but not close enough, and he stays behind Maestro in third place. McLaren team claims the pole once again. Second place goes to Maestro. Gunsis in third, Mr. Grind in fourth. Photon Burst with disappointing qualifying session in fifth, right in front of Neon Tiger and Viperian. Those are the 7 cars that will take the start in race number 12 of this championship. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely a little bit of a mix-up on the grid, as Photon will need some gains over here. We'll see if he tries to go for an early pit stop, maybe trying to get some strategy into this, trying to avoid a huge pile of traffic in front of him. But he still needs to complete 1 lap, which is gonna be difficult enough with, well, 4 cars in front of him, 2 behind, and lots of pressure all around. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, McLaren team is on pole once again. That's 3 more points for him. Good result by Maestro once again. He's racking up those qualifying points with the win. So that's going to be a good point haul for the Russian. And he might be challenging someone in the championship with that result. Though he would want to make it 2 wins rather than 1 win today. And he just has currently McLaren team between him and that goal. 1 minute till we're going green for round number 12. Sitting on the grid, getting ready to go. "20 seconds on the clock. We're gonna get lights here in just a matter of moments. Getting ready for the start of round number 12 of 18. Lights are on and they're gonna be off momentarily as 7 angry DTM vehicles are gonna try to conquer Brands Hatch once again, and that's the start. Faster start by Maestro Ponchik on the outside. They're gonna go side by side into turn 1. McLaren team keeps his position right now, single file behind them. And maybe in the back, Viperian is trying to get something done, but no cigar just yet. Single file all the way through out of turn 2 for the drivers. Photon and Grinder just mowing the lawn a little bit behind. Grinder is looking for a pass back after he was passed by Photon, and that's complete. Grinder is back to 4th position. Photon got a place and got it stolen back, going a little bit too wide on the grass. He's gonna try to get back, though this is a very, very difficult section to try any overtakes. Very, very close to grass and gravel, as Gunther just showed, getting 2 wheels on the grass. Photonburst getting some creative definition of track limits over here on the apex of a turn. As everybody's slowing down. Neon Tiger, not the best first lap in the world, as he's already 2 seconds behind Viperion. He needs to pick up the slack here. Over here. Photonburst and Mr. Grinder close to Gunsis, while the top duo of Maestro and McLaren team pretty much running away with it. So we gotta see 3 groups again, it looks like, with Maestro finding lots of pace. Oh, Mr. Grinder with a big wobble coming out of one side by side. Photonburst tries to go around the outside. He's gonna have to go all the long way around, a little bit of a touch. Nothing criminal as Mr. Grinder defends his position. Viperion is looking from behind that battle, hoping somebody would just crash and burn in this debate. Oh, so, and Grinder does that, spinning out of the turn 4. I believe he has to reverse and back onto the track. He lost a huge amount of time here, and it's definitely gonna be an uphill battle for the German from here on out. Sounded like somebody was in the gravel before. I don't think anybody lost too much time, so probably it was Gunsis just reinventing the track the track limits once again. Meanwhile, McLaren Tim is finally using all of his boosties to get out of the DRS range from Maestro, who is currently getting right in the middle between him and Gunsis. 1 second and a bit between those two. 16.579, faster than any lap in the previous race goes McLaren Tim, showing everyone he is really determined to get at least one win this weekend. Mr. Grinder 12 seconds behind Neon Tiger now. Better result than Gunsis had, so we'll see how that turns out at the end of the race. He still needs to pit though. I don't think he got onto the pit lane just yet, so that is an actual gap he'll need to close. Neon Tiger getting sort of close to Viperion. Trying to get close and personal. Well, a little bit further than just a firm handshake with that gap. And Viperion once again under fire for what now is a 5th position after a small misfortune for Mr. Grinder. Meanwhile, at the top we have gaps established in McLaren Tim trying his best to run away from Maestro, who is not being his fast self from a previous race. Still 1 pit cycle to go, and remember, Tim made a mistake on the pit lane, which probably cost him a position on track he was never able to regain. 1:16.8 by both drivers, so Team is doing well, but Maestro is not giving up. Not exactly giving up, he's still there, he's still gonna be fighting. Meanwhile, Neon Tiger goes a little bit too wide, clips the gravel and loses some ground. We go back to the footage of our leaders. We are 5 minutes into the race. 1.7 is the gap between McLaren Tim and Maestro. Another 1.5 seconds to Gunsis, and another 2 seconds to Photon. So they're pretty much strung out among themselves, though everybody has access to DRS apart from the leading car of McLaren Tim, as we're gonna go for a brief minute on board with number 037 of Maestro to listen to that engine. back on track we go as Maestro slowly but surely closes the gap back to Tim. Tim is not exactly able to maintain that high pace of his, as Maestro posted 1:16.438 as we were on board, making it the fastest racing lap of the weekend. The Russian is not screwing around, as Photon is catching up to Gunsis 7/10 behind those two. Definitely a couple of battles brewing between Team Timberwolves Racing and Gunsis Giraffe Malibu Helmet. They're both very close, they're both very dangerous, and they're both fighting for podium. McLaren team needs to do something interesting here. He tried undercut last time, but he made a mistake that backfired immensely. Will he be trying to outlast Maestro this time around, or is he gonna try to pit early this time around? Well, nobody knows apart from Tim, I believe. Maybe not even Tim. And I believe everything is indeed on fire as per usual. Maestro gains 1 more tenth. Neon Tiger gets past Viperian over here before the final turn. Didn't catch it on the broadcast, but Neon was steadily gaining and completed the pass. Viperian will need to try to get the position back at some point. Meanwhile, we have a couple battles. This is a battle for 3rd place. Photonburst fighting against Gunsis for 3rd right about now. Still a second between those two and the two in the lead. And this has been the story of the weekend, pretty much. Close battles within a second, but it's difficult to overtake, difficult to stay close behind someone. So you definitely need to find some good pace and then be brave into those turns as you battle dirty air, trying to stay close behind the car to then utilize drag and DRS and pass onto any of the straights. Both the straights come after relatively decently fast turns, so you can just outbrake your opponent and then just power out. This does not work at Brands Hatch, so you gotta stay close for quite a while. 3 more tenths gained by Photon on Gunsis. It's gonna be a battle soon. Maestro and Tim still 6 tenths apart, very close to each other indeed. 5 tenths between Neon and Viperian. Viperian is not exactly bending over backwards and giving up on the fight. They're still close together and they're still ready to battle. The only car that's not currently in any battle is gonna be Mr. Grinder, that made a mistake early in the race, and is now all by himself, about 10 seconds back on this battle pack. I had 3 fights going on, not quite sure what to show you guys. All of them are very close and all of them are very tense for all the drivers, I believe. We're gonna see who blinks first and onto the pit lane, as it's definitely gonna be a judgment call as we are 10 minutes into the race, 20 plus 1 lap to go. And we are just getting started. Fighting for 2nd position and 1 more tenth gained by Maestro on this lap. And the battles are not too far apart, just 5 seconds between those two and Gunsis and Photon, who are locked in their fight. Well, 6 seconds now. So if Maestro and Tim get side by side and lose some time in the battle, they might end up in a 4-way tie here. As Gunsis is not exactly particularly too slow compared to the leaders. They're kind of keeping up the pace amongst themselves, as Photon just lost just a tiny bit of time somewhere along the lines. He's still in the DRS range, but since everybody's so close together, you just have 12 laps of DRS per race, and that expires very fast. Probably can waste it in about half the race. So you gotta really start thinking if you want to use the DRS in every particular lap to try to get close and try to get past someone, or you wanna hang back and save it for later. But if you get past, you're not gonna use it. So this is an interesting dilemma on the strategic use of DRS for drivers as they continue racking up laps. Still a couple of battles going on. Looks like Viperian is finally giving up the position. Almost 2 seconds between those two. Neon Tiger posts really good laps for this battle, gaining almost a second a lap. And that means Mr. Grinder slowly but surely is getting closer to Viperian, trying to get a couple points for himself. He'll need those in the battle for the bottom half, I believe, already of the standings, as he missed quite a few races, but is now back in hopefully full strength. And hopefully this was one of a kind mistake he made early in the race. Half a second here between McLaren team and Master Ponchik. This is the battle for the lead. Other battles are slowly getting stretchier and stretchier, but the leaders are still close together. And Maestro is still gaining. Maestro is gonna be looking for a pass in a hot minute. Or maybe an undercut. I don't know what is gonna happen. I don't think Maestro knows what's gonna happen. Tim probably has no idea what's gonna happen. What we know is that the racing is gonna be interesting in the next 15 or so minutes. As drivers are running the hairpin turn 2, once again into turn 3 onto the short straight before going onto the main layout. We have the Indy turn right here on the right that feeds straight back onto the final turn. But we're making this a little detour every single lap into the British countryside. Well, a little bit of forest to complement it for a few right turns and a scary left-hand cambered turn to top it all off. Still half a second between them, 1.6 between Gunsters on Photon, and already 3 seconds between Neon and Viperian. Viperian is about to lose his DRS right here. Still close. Maestro is still looking for an opportunity to pass, and there it is again. McLaren team is the first one to blink and go into the pit lane. We are on board with the American. Going onto his pit stall. Is he making it there? Yes, he does. He is good on the pit lane, and he gets out there as fast as he can, a little bit loose. Let's see if there is a moment or two. Where does he rejoin? Is another important moment. He seems to be in clean air. Neon Tiger is not close enough, so lots of clean air for McLaren team in front of him to just warm up his tires and get a few laps going. But his rubber will be cold. This is a gain for Maestro. If Maestro is pitting right now, he might be able to jump Tim. Though he might want to increase that gap while Tim is still warming up his tires and then hope that he can defend on cold ones. It worked out for him last time. He did some Maestro did some brilliant defense on cold set of tires. So maybe he's banking on that once again. Obviously, we're gonna have to wait and see. We're on board with the Russian, who is now in the net lead of the race, 21.7 seconds clear. Let's see if he goes onto the pit lane right now. It certainly looks so. There you go. Maestro responds immediately, very hard onto the pit lane. A little bit of a touch again. He did the same thing in race 1 onto the pit lane, very fast, very rapidly. And his teammate is right behind him in the pits as well. Maestro parks his car for a very quick pit. Where does he get released? He goes right back out, and let's see where McLaren team is. Gunther is in the pit lane as well. He's gonna have a little bit of a gap. The gap is closer this time. The gap is closer. There is Tim right on the back of Maestro, who will have to defend with all his might. The switch is done, but where is he gonna be? Maestro defends with all his might. McLaren Tim is right behind him. There's gonna be a battle. Tim dives inside. Maestro closes the door on him. There is a punch, and Maestro gets moved out of the way by McLaren Tim, and Tim is back into the lead. That was elbows out racing, but the 71 is back on top, and we are resuming racing just where we stopped, with 1 second between those two. Meanwhile, Gunther is clear of everybody else, of Neon and Viperian. Now Photon is in the lead of a race, and I believe he will be the last of the leaders to stop. And we'll see how close he will be to Gunther. He was racing him decently close, and we'll see if he's coming in. It looks like he is. The last car of the leaders to come in is Photon Burst. We're on board once again for that pit stop cycle. 1.5 seconds between McLaren team and Maestro. The battle is gonna have to pause for a little bit there, and we'll see what Photon can do. Gunsis obviously was a lap on cold tires, which lost him some time, but Photon will rejoin on cold rubber. So where will it put him? The Dutchman rejoins. There is Gunsis, and not close enough. Photon rejoins in 4th place in front of Neon Tiger, but cold rubber will not help him close the gap to Gunsis. So I believe Gunsis is now gonna be safe for 3rd unless he makes a mistake or Photon finds some serious pace, and we continue to witness the battle for the lead. 1.6 is the gap between Maestro and McLaren team, but Maestro showed that he is the faster driver here. He can close the gap, and let's see if 12 minutes plus 1 lap is gonna be enough for him to do so. Still going strong. The gap between Gunsis and Photon is big. Photon did not have the best of pit outlaps, so he is now out of a fight for the podium. I believe he's now trying to keep Neon behind him. It's not a battle for position as Neon is yet to stop, but Photon would still not want anybody to be in front of him blocking his progress right now in case something does happen to Gunsis. Meanwhile, Mr. Grinder is still 12 seconds behind Viperian. He's gaining, but not fast enough. I'm not sure if he was in the pit lane just yet. I might have missed that moment. Still 1.7 between Maestro and McLaren team, and we're gonna go on board with the Russian once again to hear his engine and see his pursuit of a leader. Under 10 minutes plus 1 lap remaining in this race as Neon Tiger hits the pit lane, the first of the backpack, I believe, to do so. Grinder and Viperian are yet to visit the pit lane, and meanwhile, towards the front of the pack, 1.3 is now the gap between McLaren team and Maestro. Maestro slowly closing the gap, very, very slowly, but he is doing that. A little bit of damage on his left side from that contact between him and Tim when Tim was trying to barge his way past him after the pit stop. This time he was not screwing around much. Still closing in, and Photon is still losing a lot of pace, so I believe this is the only battle that's gonna be happening now. Neon Tiger officially goes 1 lap down after his pit stop, and I believe Mr. Grinder will follow suit. I'm not sure about Viperian, he probably will too, but something happened to Neon, I believe. He is way too far back right now, as he is now being lapped by Photon already. So something definitely happened to the American that we did not catch. I believe he just lost his 5th position, which is highly unfortunate. He was doing decently well within the backpack, but now it's all gonna come undone as he lets Photon through. Back to the leading fight. 1.1 is the gap. 116.9 by Tim. 116.7 by Maestro. He's still closing in. Closer and closer and closer. And 7 minutes 30 plus 1 lap on the clock. And we might have ourselves a battle at the end of a race. You better bet Maestro did not forget how McLaren team got past him. Neon Tiger back on the pit lane. I think that might be game over for the American, as he parks his car, and he might be done for today. We'll see if he rejoins the race, but we are still spectating the battle for the lead. 1.2. If Master gets there, I'm sure there might be a bumper involved. Neon Tiger gets back on track, so he must be having some issues with the car here. But he's still trying to get the race complete. He needs to get a few more laps done to get 75% completion and get the points for this run. He will need the points for sure to keep battling for the overall place in the championship. 1.1 still the gap. 1.2 McLaren Tim got some extra ponies in that engine seemingly, as he's finally getting the pace up. 116.6 against 116.7 by Maestro. And this duo will keep battling to the very end, which is getting closer and closer. 6:15 plus 1 lap, as I say every single lap. Well, I'm not much help, evidently. Well, the gap is mostly stationary. 5 seconds between Viperian and Mr. Grinder. I don't think either of them have stopped, or if they did, I must have missed that, and I apologize. 120 flat from Viperian, 117.999. So technically below 118 for Mr. Grinder, and the gap is closing for 5th place. Let's see if Grinder will be able to do what Gunsis couldn't do to him in race 1 and run down his opponent right at the very end. Still not that big of a gap between them. Speaking of not big of a gap, still the leaders. 1.1 between McLaren Tim and Master Ponchek. Very, very close. 2 different teams, and Master's DRS is, as you can see, wide open. He's trying his best to close the gap, which has opened up a little bit on the previous lap. Now he's trying to close the gap with the help of DRS. Maybe he has just enough to get to the finish. We're not sure how many laps he has left. He's clipping the gravel a little bit. That's gonna cost him a 10th or 2. Interesting line. He takes very shallow line into turn 2, trying to almost diamond that turn. As you can see, 3/10 were lost out of turn 1 with a little bit of clip of a gravel. But still, Maestro is trying his best to stay close to the leader, and they have just a few more laps to go. We're gonna switch back as Viperian is the first one of the 2 to get onto the pit lane. Mr. Grinder will still have to pit, but Viperian doesn't want a battle on track. He stops before Grinder could catch him to see if he can maybe maintain the position by a better pit strategy. It's a little bit of an undercut. Viperian rejoins, let me see, he would be basically no man's land. Neon Tiger is almost a lap behind. He's right ahead of him. There's literally nobody behind him for almost half a lap, so he's good in that regard. But we'll see what happens with Mr. Grinder. Will he pit now when Viperian's tires are still cold, or will he try to go to the end to ensure a gap? 117 flat from Maestro. He lost 8/10 on this lap. Not a good lap for him, and he'll need to start closing the gap very soon. He's losing more and more time. Very air-filled lap from the Russian as the gap grows. He's still in DRS range though, as we're focusing on Mr. Grinders. This is gonna be a battle for 5th position between him and Viperian. Is Grinder gonna pit? He's gonna pit right now. He's onto the pit lane, on the pit entry, and into the pits. The final driver to take the mandatory stop after a spin early in the race. He was battling with Viperian. Will he be able to rejoin ahead of him? On the pit lane now, There goes the car of Neon Tiger, his lap. And where is Viperian? He is still behind, I believe. I'm trying to look for a black car in the mirrors. There he is. There is Viperian. There is a few seconds worth of a gap between those two. But Mr. Grinder's tires will be cold. So this is the only chance for Viperian to just get close to it. There you go. This is a mistake. Grinder misses turn 2 just because of the cold tires. So Viperian, if he wants back past, he will need to just get the move done within the next lap. Close battle between those two. Grinder will have to warm up his tires real fast. Meanwhile, in the battle following it, 2.3 is the gap. Maestro is losing those precious tenths and precious seconds seemingly everywhere. He got a safe gap to Gunz's, but I believe his bid to win both races this weekend might be spoiled by McLaren team once again. Though I believe this will be a drop heap for McLaren team. Actually, I'm not sure. He might be tied for points in a drop week. We're gonna wait and see for the results of that. Though I believe Mr. Grinder secured his position right now in 5th as he warmed up his tires up plenty. We're going back to Maestro. 2.7 is the gap. 1.5 minutes plus 1 lap. Looking at where the drivers are, we're probably looking at 3 more laps to go, including this one. We're gonna wait and see when does McLaren team cross the start finish lap. We're looking at 1:16 as he crosses the line right about now at 1:17. 1:16, 2.6 goes McLaren team, the fastest racing lap this weekend. And I believe the American just made sure to rub it in the face of Maestro, reassuring who the fastest guy on the track is today. The final minute of a race, we might be getting 2 laps, or McLaren team might slow down to not get himself an extra lap. Just depends on what's happening. Focus on the leader. We're gonna go on board with him as he goes another lap around the circuit. He will need to go 1:17 or higher to avoid doing 1 more lap at the end as he crosses the line with 1:17 on the clock. If he crosses the line when the timer has expired, it will be his white flag. If not, he will need to go 1 more time around the circuit. So that's the difference. He has the gap of 3.2. Is he competitive enough to go once more around the track? The gaps everywhere are too big for competition. So I believe there's not gonna be much challenge in racing like in race 1 here, but I don't think he is lifting, and with 3 and 2 and 1 second to go, he crosses the lap. He crossed the start finish line, and we got 2 laps to go this time by. 2 more laps and I'm gonna shut off for this lap so you can hear the glorious Mercedes engine driven by our race leader. Out of the final corner goes our leader for 1 more lap. White flag is in the air. Brabham straight into the first turn. Paddock hill bend downhill. Hug the apex. Go all the way round the outside and into the Druids turn 2, the hairpin. Going calmly around down Graham Hill into the Graham Hill bend. Turn 3. Going all the way wide onto the AstroTurf. Around Cooper Straight, he has another lap car in his sights, but I don't think he's gonna reach it. Into Surtees, turn 4. Get all the speed he can onto the first of the long straights, the Pilgrim's Drop, as the track goes downhill into the Hawthorns on Hawthorne Hill. the right-hand turn. The next one is going to be Westfield, another right-hand turn. Through the Dingledale, the little bit of a kink. Through the Sheen curve, the third and the final of the three right-handers. And going through the cambered left-hander of Sterling's. And as he heads onto the final straight of the track. Through the clearways and onto the clock curve. For the final time to claim the checkered flag, McLaren Tim is your winner of race number 12 of Phoenix World Championship. Brilliant performance by Tim after the pit stop. Maestro claims himself P2 with this result. Good weekend for the Russian. He might be really close to him with points. He's probably second this weekend. Gunsis claims third position for himself, and that's your podium photo from fifth on the grid. Manages to salvage P4 and Grinder after his early shenanigans and early spin. He manages to get past Viperian. He manages to lap Neon Tiger, who had issues, and he is on his way to P5 in this race. Not the best weekend for the German, but certainly lots of close racing, a recovery drive, and a few points to show for it as he rounds up the final few turns. Neon Tiger will be finishing behind him, but a lap down, and the final car that will cross the start-finish line is gonna be the Kiwi entry of Viperian, the 05 car, as we go on board with the driver crossing the finish line and round out our weekend in Team Kiwi Racing. Well, that is all we have for you this time around. Brilliant job by all the drivers. Some entertaining racing throughout this weekend, some interesting fights, and we shall just quickly move on to some commentary from the drivers. Let's see who we can get, because my voice is slowly but surely disappearing, and let's see if we can get somebody. Neon, hello, do you hear me? Alright, hello. Interesting battles for you throughout this weekend in both races 1 and 2, and obviously wanted to ask what happened in turn 2. We saw you on the pit lane quite a few times in the middle of a race. Okay, that's really unfortunate, but in the first race, really decent close battle, and I guess at the start of a second race, really close battle with Viperian. You seem to be pretty on pace with each other and trading laps back and forth. Yeah, for sure, that's unfortunate, but still, decent point haul with a small grid, and that's still gonna be some gains for the championship.
So at least there's some reason to keep going as far as that race.
Also, I just realized that because software really hates me today, pretty much nobody heard most of what you said, but well, sorry about that.
Oh, it's fine. Just everything's breaking today. Everything breaking.
This is that kind of weekend, eh?
Yeah. Well, onward and upward to the next one.
Well, that's a very good mindset, and good luck to you next time. It's gonna be Lausitzring. What do you feel about this track? Do you feel anything about this track?
I've never raced it before. I'm familiar with it, just from some preparation I've done ahead of time. Haven't driven it yet, but I'll get the chance to drive it like next week.
All right. Well, good luck to you, and see you next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Right, that was Neon. Let's hear from let's see if I can grab him in the chat. There we go. Hello, Maestro, do you hear me?
Yes.
Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend for you. Lots of pace and congratulations with the win in race 1.
Thanks.
Lots of pace, and you were definitely battling Tim and kind of getting away from him at the end of the first race. What I noticed in both races, very interesting entry on the pit lane for you. Both times you were majorly sideways. Was that a tactic or just a miss?
That's what happens when you don't practice pit entrance.
Well, that was certainly entertaining, and at the end of the second race, noticed that with a few laps to go, you kind of started losing out quite a lot to Tim. And I noticed in the first race that you kind of lost a little bit of time. Is it something with the car or with your driving? Like the last few laps, you started losing a little bit of time to your competitors.
Well, in first race, I was already safe to win. So I'm not gonna crash, so I just drive slowly and carefully. Second race, I made, I think, 2 mistakes in a row with gravel, and after that, if I was pushing really hard, I could keep up with Tim, but I was not closing the gap, so I said, I guess I'll just get it home.
It definitely worked a really good point haul for you today. I believe Tim only beat you on qualifying points, so that's really good weekend overall, and good pace, especially compared to your teammate. I believe you were close, and sometimes he was ahead of you, but this time, I believe that was certainly dominating between you two.
Well, that's because I like brands.
Well, you like brands, and what's your opinion of our next track on the calendar, the Lausitz Ring?
I don't know what this track is, so I have no opinion so far.
Okay, so that is gonna be interesting weekend then for you and for us.
Yeah.
Alright, well, good luck to you and congratulations once again with a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks. Good luck.
Alright, let's hear from the other race winner in the pack right here.
Very many.
Alright, Tim, hello.
Hey.
Well, shocking development in our league. You did not win a race for once.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw it coming, to be honest. And plus, let's not forget, Maestro was very quick today, so props to him.
A competition definitely closer to you than ever in Brands Hatch. Not just him, Bolton and Gunsays were keeping up pace in race 1 and at the start. And both races were kind of decided after the pit stops, while in race 1, Maestro managed to hold you back. In race 2, there was quite a lot of argy-bargy between you two.
Yeah, so, I mean, in race 1, I think to begin with, I was kind of not sure where the car was going to be, because I didn't have a great experience driving around this track. In practice, I was constantly losing it, flying off the track, whatever. So I was trying to take it easy just to see where the car and where I would be. So it was kind of, I was driving it on purpose with more tire conservation. But then I think I was keeping in front of him decently. But then the pit stops came, and I drove into the pits fine, but then I overshot the pit box. So that costed me a whole second when I was supposedly in front of him by half a second when I went into the pits. And then on the outlap, I also had a big mistake. So when I came out, I was a little just too far behind. And then yeah, I tried to look for a move because I did end up getting DRS, but I think it was just really close, and I just lost it for that split second, and we touched bumpers slightly. And then the second race, I kind of was more confident, and so I started pushing the car a lot more. And then when it was time for the pits, I did the pit stop and the outlap fine this time. So then I didn't waste a second trying to make a move on Maestro. So yeah, I closed in on him really fast in turn 2 when he came out of the pit stop. And in turn 3, I tried to sell him a dummy. It was, I would say I don't know, kind of a racing incident there when we had contact, because he didn't leave me much room, but obviously I was trying to sell him a dummy. So yeah, kind of tough to say, but yeah, I think it would have stuck if there was a little more room, but I mean, not really for me to decide. I just really needed to get ahead of him when his tires were cold.
Yeah, it was very interesting race, and certainly two different outcomes with the race, with how you acted. And at the end of race 2, notice that you just after you cleared Maestro, you just went for the fast lap and did 1:16.2, real good fast lap. Did you do that on purpose, or did it just happen?
Yeah, so after I cleared Maestro, I kind of yeah, I made sure to push more at the beginning of both the stints, before and after the pit stop, because yeah, I guess I was just more confident. And last time when I conserved the tires, it didn't work out that great. So yeah, I knew that that was kind of the pace that I could expect if I really pushed. So I guess I'm glad it worked out.
Alright, well, congratulations. Still a very strong weekend for you. Still a good points haul. And next up, Lausitz Ring. Hopefully, more close racing. Hopefully for us in the booth, you won't have a really easy time. But still, good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Georgie.
Alright, let's see if Gunsis wants to chat. Why, hello there.
Okay.
So where did your pace go?
You tell me. I don't know. I had the first practice session. It was pretty good for me, and I thought I would keep up with pace with Tim and Maestro. But in the next practice sessions and come this race, the pace just went away, and I don't know where it went.
It was entertaining to see the battles. At least you kind of had a chase. If I say a hunt down of Mr. Grinder at the end, and I believe that was less than a 10 between you at the finish line. How's that from your side?
Yeah, it's something like that. That's what actually happened. I noticed the pace I was catching him, so I was pushing as hard as I could to go for an overtake, but I basically was missing one more lap to get for a good overtake, which was probably because of one of the laps I did a small mistake and I lost some time on him. So yeah.
Still a decent point haul for your team, but I believe that would be the first time this championship your teammate actually did. Actually got more points for the team than you. Hoping to get back at him next weekend at Lausitz Ring?
Yeah, this was a track Maestro was strong on, so, and I saw it in practice that he was keeping on and even be a little bit faster, so I was kind of expecting that, and that's why we went for a kind of a double pit stop in race 2 to maybe I would be able to help out Maestro in home up him, but I was too far back.
Well, it was still interesting race, definitely interesting finish on race 1, and good luck to you next, I guess next race weekend in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Alright, and since we have a short grid, might as well grab the final one, hey? Why, hello, Photon.
Hello.
Definitely interesting weekend, with, I guess, different sorts of battles you won and lost today.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, the first major weird thing we noticed, the qualifying for the second race. What happened there?
I mean, you could say what didn't happen there. For some reason, like, the first event went really well, but I don't know, maybe just took too much out of me or something, but I didn't really have that focus that I had for the first race. But then there was also traffic. Basically, the only valid lap I set was with a really big wiggle out of turn 3, so I lost about a second and a half there, maybe. And yeah, all the other laps were just either invalidated just over the edge, or yeah, like I said, traffic or whatever. So I just couldn't get a clean lap in.
Okay, well, certainly disappointing. But on the other hand, qualifying for race 1, you managed to get past Gunderson, get an extra point, and qualify right next to your teammates. So that was for a while front row lockout for you two before Maestro decided to show up some pace.
Well, for race 1, we actually did have a front row lookout, I think.
Yes, for a while, but I guess Maestro just dove down and got past you relatively close. What was interesting at the end of race 2, when you left the pit lane, I believe you didn't really fight Tim that much, but at the end you were hunting him down and just struggled to pass it at the end, just short of that position. Did you regret letting your teammate through right after the pit stop?
Nah, not really. Because at first I thought that Tim did have the pace over me, even though I stopped like 5 or 6 laps after him, I think. So yeah, like as I came out, I was just a little bit too close to him. If the gap would have been like half a second to a second bigger, I could have held him off. But he just made a move to the inside, and I could have closed it, but then I could have also just thrown everything away and made us both spin out, and we still had a chance, I thought, to chase after Maestro and get him back. So I was just like, you know, my tires are so cold, I'll just hang back, sit in his DRS and just save the tires a little bit, and then just see if I can get him at the very end. And I could actually keep up with him, because afterwards I asked him about that, and Tim did say that he was actually saving tires quite a lot as well, because of his early stop. So I sort of expected to get closer. I didn't expect to get that close. I think I closed about a second in that last lap. But yeah, no regrets. It would have been nice to get that P2 out of it, but yeah, it's fine the way it is as well. I'd rather have this than both of us crash out.
For sure, definitely a good point, Hole. And the next race is gonna be Lausitz Ring. Do you know the track? What do you expect from it?
Not really, but from what I can see, it will suit the car a little bit more. Because Brands Hatch, I felt like, was a lot more suited towards the Biro cars, and we really had to do a lot of work on the setup to actually get it to work on Brands Hatch relatively safely. So yeah, I think it will be a slightly easier weekend, but we shall see. I still need to... I think the test race really helped, because that made me already know the track, and Lausitz Ring will be completely new, so it'll just take a little bit more practice, but yeah, then I should be able to extract quite a bit out of it, hopefully.
Alright, well, can't wait to see that, and until then, a good weekend, and good luck next time.
Thank you.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this will be it for us, I believe. This has been a really fun weekend. 2 absolutely different kind of races. The first one with lots of on-track battles and lots of close calls, and the second one more of a tactical race and a little bit of a hunt down at the end. But overall, great weekend, and we are $115 in for Phoenix World Championship Direct Relief campaign for Direct Relief. Thank you so much for donating, and we'll continue right till the end of the season. 3 more weekends to go. Next time, we're gonna be heading to Lausitz Ring, the first of the 3 closing German stages, where the drivers will try to conquer a little bit of oval with a little bit of road course. Until then, thank you all so much for watching, and this is goodbye.